Today's featured artist on Frank's Magic Bus.
And our feature this time around is the British band Badfinger, the first real band signed by the Beatles' Apple Records and Apple Publishing in the late 1960s. I mean, they grew up in the same music and everything came from the same territory, so they sounded so much like the Beatles. Were taken under the wing of the Beatles at that time, and they would kind of cross-pollinate. George Harrison played on some of their stuff, and they played with George in the concert for Bangladesh, and Paul wrote one of their biggest hits. And we're talking one-on-one with Joey Molland, the only real member of Badfinger left. He was there early in '69 when they were called something else, but he was there before all the big hits came out, co-wrote a lot of those hits too, and we talk with Joey about what Badfinger was before they became the most talked about Beatle project.
The band was called the Ivies. When the Beatles announced they were going to form Apple, there was a band called the Ivies, and their manager, Bill Collins, was from Liverpool. And he was an old pianist in the 50s, the 40s and 50s and stuff. And Paul McCartney's father was a trumpet player at the same time in Liverpool. And they kind of bumped into each other on that music scene. Anyway, all those years go by, the Beatles come out. Bill Collins, the Ivies manager now, remembers Paul's dad and uses that little flimsy connection to actually get in to see the Beatles and give them tapes of the Ivies songwriting.
That is amazing. Well, that probably was a good connection because Paul was pretty close to his old man at that time, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It was a very, very strong family ties there. Yeah, so he was able to get in there, give him some tapes of songs. He'd been encouraging the band to write songs and be songwriters, which was a very astute thing to do, I might add, at the time. And they did. They practiced and practiced. They wrote and they wrote and they wrote. And lo and behold, the Beatles signed them to Apple Records. Apple Publishing, actually. Apple Music Publishing.
Weren't they even called still the Ivies right up until recording that very first hit, and they had to have a name change because the Ivies were like too corny?
Exactly right. They were looking... They'd started out as a rock band, was what they told me, a rock and roll and rhythm and blues band. You know, a little bit hard kind of sounding, as a lot of club bands were in those days. And Bill had talked them into the songwriting world, which was a very pop-oriented thing, yeah? Feeling that they were feeling their rock and roll oats, and they wanted a new name. And they wanted something a bit tougher and stuff, and so they started to look right at that same time for a new name, yeah.
And, of course, in a very funny story to our listeners who, of course, know all the Badfinger hits, but might not know exactly how they got that name Badfinger. Funny story with the Beatle behind that, right?
Yeah. John played the piano. The Badfinger actually came from the title of A Little Help from My Friends. It was the working title for that song. And John apparently had played piano on the demo. And John wasn't the greatest pianist in the world. He was a good pianist, but he wasn't the greatest.
That's why they got Billy Preston later.
Probably. Anyway, so they titled that song Badfinger Boogie, because John had played the piano. And years later, when the Ivies were looking for a new name, not that long after, I suppose, it was Neil Aspinall, the head of Apple Records, the ex-Beatle roadie, who said, Badfinger. And everybody thought that was a great idea, yeah?
I tell you what, along with Foghat, I think that has to be a couple of the coolest names for bands, I'm telling you.
I've never thought of it like that. I'll have to tell Roger about that when I see him.
That's right, Roger Earl, yes.
Yeah.
Our old buddy. Hey, listen now, you joined the band really in time for all the string of hits that they had after Come and Get It. Baby Blue and Day After Day and everything, right, in 1969?
Oh, yeah. I actually joined the band before Come and Get It came out.